In May 2011, the town of Riverside, California, became the site of a tragedy that stunned the nation. Joseph Hall, a 10-year-old boy, did the unthinkable. He shot and killed his father, Jaff Hall, while he slept. What appeared to be a simple but shocking crime soon revealed layers of domestic violence, extremism, and a deeply troubled family dynamic. Joseph Hall was born into an incredibly difficult and unstable environment. His father, Jaff Hall, was not just an ordinary man but a regional leader in the National Socialist Movement, a neo-Nazi organization known for its violent rhetoric and racist ideology. Jaff was outspoken about his extremist beliefs, openly advocating for white supremacy and teaching these toxic ideals to his children. From a young age, Joseph was exposed to hate-filled gatherings and white nationalist events, where he witnessed his father as an active participant in a movement steeped in violence. But this wasn't the only trauma Joseph endured. Behind the walls of their home, Jaff was an abusive father, known for his explosive temper. He would frequently physically punish Joseph, sometimes hitting him with a belt and subjecting him to emotional torment. The toxic combination of domestic abuse and extremist beliefs created a volatile environment for a young boy already struggling to cope. Joseph had significant behavioral issues. Diagnosed with ADHD and a learning disability, he struggled in school and exhibited violent outbursts, often hitting other students and showing signs of severe emotional distress. Teachers and counselors were well aware of his troubling behavior, but little was done to address the root cause: his chaotic home life. His mother, Letitia Neal, had lost custody of him and his siblings due to neglect, leaving Joseph trapped in a cycle of instability and abuse at his father's house. On the night of May 1, 2011, Joseph made a decision that would forever change his life. It was a typical night in the Hall household. Jaff had returned home late from a neo-Nazi gathering and had fallen asleep on the living room couch. Joseph, feeling overwhelmed by years of abuse and unable to see any way out, took a .357 Magnum revolver that his father had carelessly left accessible. With the gun in hand, Joseph quietly walked downstairs. He approached his father, who was sleeping soundly, and aimed the gun at his head. Without hesitation, Joseph pulled the trigger, firing a single shot that instantly killed Jaff Hall. At just 10 years old, Joseph had committed a murder that would spark national outrage and provoke a complex legal battle. The aftermath was chilling. Joseph didn't flee or hide the weapon. Instead, he went upstairs, telling his younger sister that their father was dead. When the police arrived, they found a strangely calm Joseph waiting for them. He later told investigators, "I thought if I shot him, it would make the pain stop." This was not a crime of passion. It was the tragic result of years of abuse and exposure to violence. From the moment investigators arrived, the case was anything but ordinary. A 10-year-old boy had just confessed to murder, and the story behind it was deeply unsettling. As they dug into the Hall family's history, detectives uncovered a dark world of abuse and hatred. Jaff Hall's role as a neo-Nazi leader was well known in Riverside, but what shocked investigators was the way he had involved his children in this violent ideology. Joseph had attended rallies and protests with his father, learning from a young age about violence and racial hatred. He was taught that using force was acceptable, even necessary, to achieve dominance over others. For Joseph, violence was not just something he witnessed, it was a tool he believed could solve his problems. In addition to Jaff's extremist activities, the investigation revealed years of domestic violence inside the Hall household. Joseph had been subjected to harsh punishments, both physical and emotional, by his father. He was frequently hit, berated, and made to feel worthless. This abuse, combined with his learning disabilities and behavioral issues, had pushed Joseph to the edge. The night of the murder was not the first time Joseph had threatened his father. In the weeks leading up to the shooting, Joseph had expressed to family members and friends that he wanted to kill his father. But no one took his threats seriously, dismissing them as the angry outbursts of a troubled child. Tragically, they were more than that. They were cries for help. The legal battle that followed was one of the most complicated aspects of this case. How do you prosecute a 10-year-old child for murder? Should he be treated as a criminal or as a victim of extreme circumstances? The prosecution argued that Joseph knew exactly what he was doing. He had deliberately retrieved the gun, aimed it, and fired with the intent to kill. They presented evidence that Joseph had threatened to kill his father before and suggested that this was not an impulsive act, but a premeditated one. They sought to try Joseph as a juvenile for second-degree murder, arguing that despite his age, he understood the severity of his actions. On the other hand, Joseph's defense team painted a very different picture. They argued that Joseph had been severely abused and indoctrinated into a world of violence from a young age. His violent outbursts were a direct result of his father's physical abuse and the toxic neo-Nazi environment in which he was raised. The defense presented expert testimony showing that Joseph's cognitive development had been affected by his ADHD and learning disabilities, which hindered his ability to fully grasp the consequences of his actions. One of the most emotional moments during the trial came when Joseph was asked why he shot his father. His answer was heart-wrenching. "I thought he would stop hitting me and yelling at me." This statement encapsulated the desperation of a young boy who felt he had no other way to escape the abuse. The prosecution presented chilling evidence during the trial, including video footage of Joseph being interviewed by the police shortly after the shooting. In the footage, Joseph displayed an eerie calmness, describing the event in a matter-of-fact tone. However, the defense countered with testimony from family members, neighbors, and experts, detailing the years of abuse Joseph endured at the hands of his father. Ultimately, the judge found Joseph guilty of second-degree murder but acknowledged the complexity of the case. Joseph was sentenced to time in a juvenile detention facility where he would receive treatment and counseling for his behavioral issues and trauma. His sentence left open the possibility of release by the age of 23 based on his rehabilitation progress. While Joseph Hall's case is legally closed, the emotional aftermath continues to linger. The case forced the nation to confront difficult questions about child abuse, the influence of extremist ideologies, and the responsibility of society to intervene before tragedy strikes. For many, Joseph is seen as a victim, a child who was shaped by the violent, racist world he was forced to grow up in. Others, however, view him as a dangerous individual who took a life and must be held accountable for his actions, regardless of his age. What's clear is that the Hall family was living in a house of horrors, where hate and violence were passed down from father to son. Joseph, already struggling with developmental issues, was never given the tools to escape that cycle. Instead, he became a tragic figure in one of the most shocking child-perpetrated crimes in modern history. As the case was officially closed, one haunting question remains: was Joseph Hall born to kill, or was he shaped by the violent, extremist world he was forced to live in? And as we continue to grapple with these difficult questions, we're reminded of the lasting impact that abuse and hatred can have on even the youngest members of our society. In the end, Joseph's case isn't just about one boy, it's about a broken system, a dangerous ideology, and a tragic failure to protect a child in need.